So, I have not been secretive about how I feel about the Amazing Digital Circus and how much I love Gooseworks and Glitch Productions' time into making this amazing show. It's filled with so many lovable characters, every one of them just great in their own right, as well as the themes of the show and how it all combines together to make one of the best stories I have seen in any show or movie, honestly. And to see that it's coming in theaters is astonishing and just incredible to me. So before it comes out in theaters and we get to see what happens in the end, I want to go over each episode every week to talk about the themes and the characters and how they work together so well to make such an amazing story. Before we get into the pilot episode, I'm going to explain how this video series is going to work. I will have folders for all the themes that I have found in the series, as well as folders for the characters and their arcs. Every time a theme or an event for the character that changes them appears in the scene, I will be adding a point to the folder. This idea actually comes from a different YouTube channel called Just Lance and Corbin. They made videos for each season of Invincible, explaining the differences between the shows and the comics and why they're so different. Except for season 3 didn't change much because of the themes. Basically, he's just explaining how the themes in the shows differentiate from the comics and how the show or the comics did something better. It's a very interesting watch for each episode, and I would say maybe watch an episode a day because they are pretty long. I just wanted to give credit to him because without him, I probably would have never come up with this idea. So hats off to you, Lance. That out of the way, let's begin. Now, if you haven't watched the pilot ever since it first aired, you might think, what is the first episode gonna have that is gonna come to themes and character arcs? I'll tell you, there's not as much for character arcs, but there is a lot to the themes than you might realize. There are actually two themes right at the beginning during the theme song that I would like to talk about. Nihilism versus existentialism, and things aren't as they seem. First, Kane talks about this as if it's a show, and the characters, the theme song, everything makes it seem like nothing matters. The lyrics don't even make sense. Day after day we fly, as the moon as the sun, and we don't know why. As if nothing matters. Nihilism. We see Kane and the other cast. We can see their stereotypical cartoon side. And we also hear the cheer music, but for some reason, when they say in the theme song, day after day, it repeats more than it should. And at the end, when they say, and we don't know why, the notes are very eerie, as if there's something under the surface that we don't know. Things are not as they seem. Next thing I want to talk about is when Pomni sees the exit and tries to go inside it, the exit door disappears, which later down the line we can put in the nihilism versus existentialism folder, which I'll explain why once we get to that point. Next, we have all the characters reacting to Pomni's appearance in the circus, and they act so nonchalant about it all, because they're used to all of this, while Pomni isn't, which is a big focus on this episode. They're used to this stagnant life, while Pomni just spawned in and needs help getting used to this kind of life. Ragatha, who's wanting to help Pomni, doesn't exactly know the right way to do it, being friendly, but acting like nothing is wrong, and so it doesn't really work.
What is going on?
And this leads to Pomni finding out they cannot curse, which Kane does intentionally, not for malicious reasons, but it does hurt the members, because curse words in real life are usually used to calm us down when we're feeling emotions, and so it doesn't help that they're not able to do that in the circus. All of this helps with our character Pomni, to help her understand how things work and what kind of situation she is in. But this scene also helps us understand a bit more about Jax's, Zubal's, Ragatha's, and Kane's character, as we can see a bit of their stereotypical parts of their personality before we see their real and human side to each of the characters later in the other episodes. Because this episode is to lull us into a false sense of security, with the characters showing stereotypes throughout the entire episode, to make them seem more surface level than they actually are. Jax seems to be a bit of a jerk so far, Zubul is a grumpy person, and Ragatha is the cheerful and nice one, while Kane is a bit oblivious. Pomni asking about the exit, and everyone explaining to her how they've never been able to leave, brings in the nihilism versus existentialism again, which I will get to when it gets to that point. I can explain it. We then get introduced to Kinger and Gangle. Kinger having the stereotypical crazy guy, and then Gangle being the one who cries all the time stereotype. And we see Jax being a bit of a jerk once again. Pomni's arc for this episode begins when she starts thinking that it's a dream. We get to see more of Kane's obliviousness when he tries to give Pomni a tour, and he doesn't realize how terrified he makes her throughout the entire thing. His all-seeing eyes, which he sees as a joke, terrifies her. His joke about clean up on aisle U when she pukes is more of him being oblivious, because he doesn't realize how horrible pukes can feel. So he doesn't realize how uncaring that joke can sound like. The exit door once again is seen by Pomni, which again, I'm gonna count it towards nihilism versus existentialism folder. When Pomni brings it up, Kane obviously seems to be hiding something. And so we assume that the door is an actual exit to leave. But we do find out later that it's not as it seems. Then comes the name scene, where Pomni, who I've been saying as Pomni, doesn't actually get that name yet, and finds out they don't remember their real name, as if their names do not matter anymore. Nihilism versus existentialism. Pomni doesn't even care about getting a new name. He lets Kane give her a new name with that random letter generator. But Pomni wants to rest and settle down because this is a crazy situation that she's in, but Kane immediately tries to redirect everything to an adventure for Pomni to get used to the adventures instead of what she really needs to be getting used to, the circus. And that is the biggest problem with Kane. The fact that he doesn't know how to get people settled in and how to have them enjoy things. Zubul showing her stereotype that we associate with her at first, says that she doesn't want to do an in-house adventure. Kane lets them not be involved in the adventure, even though they end up getting involved anyways by accident. After Kane's explanation, we get to see more of the characters showing off their stereotype, making the show at first seem very on the surface level, when it's a lot more in the other episodes. Again, there is more to them than they seem. While this scene is playing out, Kinger mentions Kaufmo and how he's been saying basically the same thing that Pomni has been seeing. He says that maybe it might be her going insane, while Pomni says, doesn't that mean there is an exit? This can go into the nihilism versus existentialism about whether or not it matters. The exit door matters. Pomni once again mentions it being a dream, and we have Jax splitting them up and showing Kinger and Gangle, showing their stereotypical side of their character. Then we have Agatha talking to Pomni, trying to help her understand things, when she starts talking about abstraction. And we see her not being her stereotypical self here. There is more to them than what they seem. Then we get to see Jax's and Ragatha's relationship while they're at Kaufmo's door, and it is not the best relationship that we've seen so far. When we see Kaufmo, he is abstracted, and I want to talk about abstraction right now because I kind of realized abstraction is a decision that the characters themselves make. For one thing, we can compare the abstraction to side, like how Zubul says,
Man, I can't believe Kaufmo just gave up like that.
The other reason I can't really get into because it's in episode 7, so I'll save it for then. But anyways, because it seems to be a decision from the player themselves. It is them saying that they don't matter, this place doesn't matter, so they abstract. So we can put this in the nihilism versus existentialism folder. When Kaufmo is attacking Ragatha, she says something that is very weird and strange for the type of character she's supposed to be the stereotype of.
Listen, I know we didn't always get along, like when you called me out for fake laughing at your jokes. I swear I really did think they were funny. I was just having a bit of a bad day!
Again, it is not as it seems. Ragatha, when she begs for help, Pomni tries to reach her hand out, showing Ragatha that to Pomni, she matters. When she touches Ragatha, though, it makes her hand glitch, so she cannot do anything about it. And she runs away because to her, her life matters as well. Again, nihilism versus existentialism. Their lives matter to Pomni right now. When Kaufmo crashes out onto the floor and Pomni escapes him, she goes back because once again, Ragatha matters to her right now. When we catch up to Kinger and Gangle, Jax shows up and we can see how different Jax is to everyone else. Both Kinger and Gangle obviously care about saving Zubul from the Gloigs, while Jax doesn't really care at all. Both Gangle and Kinger worried about Kaufmo, and Jax, who knows what happened, lies to them. And the rest of the scene shows just how much Jax doesn't really care at all, while Kinger and Gangle are kind of interested in what's going on in this adventure. If you notice the pattern, this is once again nihilism versus existentialism. Going back to Pomni, when she's coming to see Ragatha and asking what she can do, they both show that they care for each other in their own ways. Again, nihilism versus existentialism. While Pomni is searching for Kane, she stumbles into Kaufmo, who of course starts chasing her. Next, we catch up to Gangle, Kinger, and Jax while they listen to the Gloink Queen, and we can see Jax still just does not care at all. And then Zubul comes in, and Kinger, does a little joke to show his stereotype, and then when Zubul yells for them to save them, Jax once again shows that he doesn't care, while Kinger and Gangle play rock, paper, scissors to decide who saves Zubul.
I'll be fine.
And then when Zubul is eaten by the Gloink Queen, we see Gangle's and Jax's reaction, and how it's totally the exact opposite. Gangle squeals in horror, while Jax doesn't care and says that they will be alright. Once again, nihilism versus existentialism. You see a pattern here for this episode. We go back to Pomni being chased by Kaufmo, and she looks herself in the mirror for the first time in the circus, seeing how different she looks. It obviously mattered to her how much of a difference it is. And then we see her being able to escape Kaufmo by pulling out a barrel of monkeys by accident, and Kaufmo started chasing them. And then while she was still looking for Kane, she sees the exit door, and she decides to go inside it, leaving Ragatha and the rest of the cast behind to deal with Kaufmo, not knowing if Kane would return and help. So, to her, the exit door is more important than helping Ragatha right now at this moment, and everyone else in the circus. Nihilism versus existentialism once again. We return with Jax and everyone else, and the Gloink Queen is monologuing, and after the monologue, Jax says how it's all weird and basically stupid. The Gloink Queen gets a bit angry about it, and Jax is about to reveal that Kaufmo abstracted when Kaufmo appears from above, destroying the Gloink Queen, and Gangle is showing concern about it all, while Jax is acting nonchalant about it, revealing that Kaufmo abstracted. Gangle's reaction shows that she cared. You guys are seeing a pattern. It's very obvious what the theme is here for this episode. But then Kinger shouting, "How are we gonna get out of here?" showing that he cares about leaving. And we just keep on seeing Jax just not caring about anything and being a jerk to everyone, while everyone else is trying to do their best to behave and be caring to one another. As Zubul says, "Wasn't this adventure for Pomni?" which shows a bit more of her character, showing that she's more than just the grumpy one. Again, not as it seems. And then Jax doesn't really care about that, saying to be quiet. This is once again nihilism versus existentialism. We now go back to Pomni, who is trying to leave the circus right now, not knowing what is going on with all the exit doors. and eventually goes into the void by accident. Kane goes and saves her from whatever might have happened to her if she stayed in there any longer. Kinger tells Kane how Kaufman was abstracted, and Kane decides to make a joke, which once again makes him seem uncaring to Pomni. After Kane puts Kaufman into the cellar, which the way he talks once again makes him seem uncaring, Zubul comes in and basically shows more character than what we've seen on the surface level. Things are not as they seem once again. Ragatha is seen crawling her way towards Kane, and Kane just fixes her right up, as well as Pomni's hand, showing that the damage didn't really matter at all. Nihilism versus existentialism. Ragatha stands back up, and her expression looks oddly uncharacteristic of what we've seen of her. Not everything is as things seem. Kane then finally reveals that this entire time the exit door was a adventure he was planning on taking them. All this time, the exit door did not matter. Nihilism versus existentialism. Kane then congratulates them on defeating the Gloink Queen, even though they didn't really do that, so it didn't really matter. Nihilism versus existentialism again, for the last time. And then, Kinger brings up the idea that they don't need to sleep or eat or anything because of it being the digital world, which is very uncharacteristic of his stereotype. Not everything is as they seem. Finally, we see Pomni finally realizing this is all real. This is her new life now, as the song titled Your New Home plays. This is the end of her arc for this episode, realizing that she's stuck in this world that she has no idea how to get out. So yeah, episode 1 has a lot more than I think we all gave it credit for, including me. And honestly, I just can't wait to start analyzing the other episodes, because this one was interesting to look back at and realize how much it actually had. And I feel like the episodes after are gonna have a lot more.